Hey, what's up you guys? It's Simon. Welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, we are doing the decade challenge. It's probably gone a little bit out of style as you guys are seeing this video, but towards the beginning of January and the end of 2019 in general, a lot of people were doing something called the decade challenge. It's a little bit different than the draw this again challenge, although for some people it's technically not that different. It's a little bit different for me because when I do draw this again challenges, I usually tend to pick things that were maybe like a year old or a little bit before that, like you guys saw me do with the reindeer. But the decade challenge is something where you purposely pick something you drew 10 or more or less years ago and pick something and redraw that again. So that is what I did. I did one of it where I didn't make a video out of it on my Instagram. You guys saw me redo, what was that I redrew? I think it was fan art for like this really obscure manga, and I drew one of the characters and I redrew it. But I feel like I didn't really get to give this challenge the, I suppose, effort that it deserved, because the day that I posted that, I was stuck in my wrist brace and I was not vibing. I was hurting real bad. I couldn't really draw that well with the brace, but I was like, I want to do it. I want to do it so bad before the year ends. I have to do it. So I did. But I really wanted to give it another shot, so I figured I would schedule it for one of January's videos. So here is the decade challenge again. So the first thing I want to talk about is what this drawing is. If you're a fan of Homestuck, you can clearly already tell by the original drawing that I show in the first few seconds, it's fan art, and it is Carcat because I love Carcat. He's baby. And I felt like I've been missing him. You know, Homestuck 2 came out recently, haven't read it yet. Read partway through the epilogues and got really sad and can't bring myself to continue reading them. So I thought to cure myself of the pain that I've just been dealt, I would draw Carcat again because I love Carcat. So there's the original drawing, but I thought I would give you guys a little bit of thoughts as to what I feel about the original drawing, so I gave myself some like bullet points to talk about. So the first and clearly glaringly obvious thing is his head is huge. It's literally the size of his torso, which that's like a Funko Pop. Like, it's, his head's big, his neck's thick. I can't with it. His head is huge, and his mouth and his nose, despite this fact, are very small. His eyes, true to anime fashion, are gigantic, to cope with the fact that his head is so big, and it's very messy overall, definitely proportion-wise, especially in his body. It's really, really rectangular. And I'm convinced I might have traced a little bit. In my defense, this was drawn in 2012. I was 13 years old, and I had only started drawing about 2 years before that. So don't trace, kids. It's fine to trace a little bit. Don't trace and then post and then say you did it all by yourself. Tracing is a good tool to help you learn how proportions work. Do not heavily rely on it, but if you're using it to sort of get muscle memory, that's something that is totally fine. Again, if you trace, just say like, hey, this is the reference I used, this is what I traced from, it is traced, I did not do this all by myself, I'm doing this to learn. Don't trace. But I'm pretty sure I traced that and then just was like, yep, I did this all by myself, it was me. I was 13 and I was on DeviantArt and everybody did it, okay? Don't do that. Don't be that kid. I'm pretty sure, and the reason I think I traced it is looking at, I don't know my directions, but the shoulder that is closest to the viewer has so much detail in it, like at the shoulder and just the folds and everything, and I'm not convinced that 13-year-old me was able to do that without either looking at a reference and heavily referencing it, or straight up tracing it, like I did with that creek that you guys saw on Instagram. So I'm pretty sure I traced that. The line art also is just like very, very choppy. It's like, especially around his chin. I don't know if I can put like a close-up in here. I'll probably forget in editing this video, but I will post it side by side later on Instagram. You'll see his chin is so, like, the lines don't even connect. It's like he's got like some kind of chin hair thing going on. It's not cute. It's not smooth. It's not one cohesive line. It looks really bad. Also, speaking of like scribbly, the coloring, it's not so much on the face and on the body so much as it is in the hair. There's so many places where you can see that I attempted to do some form of highlighting his hair, and then I decided that the color that I used was too light, and I scribbled on top of it with a different color that was also a highlight, but it was darker than the original one, so I was a little more happy with it, maybe. I don't know. I don't remember making this. I just know I did it. But I did it bad because you can still see the other color underneath it, and it's not as if I was trying to use two different colors to highlight it. I can tell I was straight up trying to scribble over and hide that layer. So that didn't work. It looks really bad, and also there's a lot of parts where I go out of the lines, a lot of parts that I didn't color at all, a lot of parts that have like white spots, like on his, I don't know my directions again, his eye on one of the sides has like his skin color is seeping into the whites of his eye, so it's just overall a big ol' mess, and I felt like this would be a good candidate for this challenge. So getting into the new drawing, the first thing I wanted to mention is in sketching it, I forgot his horns, and I did not notice until I went to color his skin, and I was like, something's wrong. I feel it. And then I looked, and then I was like, his horns. How did I forget his horns? This is a huge thing. He's a troll. It's homestuck. They have horns. And yet, I forgot them. So I had to hurry up and sketch those real quick. I'm actually pretty happy with how they turned out. I'm sorry, I turned my head to look at the drawing. I'm actually pretty happy with how they turned out because I was using color pencil for line art again. And I think you guys will have seen this video by now, but from Wish, I ordered one of those electric erasers, and it actually erases color pencil really, really well. And when you put Copic on top of it, most of the time you can't even tell. You might be able to see if I pushed really hard where I originally had the color pencil, but looking at the illustration, at least from my perspective right now, you can't tell that I messed up. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is the color choices. So in the original illustration, I didn't mention that it was something that I didn't like, just because for some people that's just how they draw Karkat, like very gray, which is fine. His whole thing is that he likes to hide his blood color because he's insecure about it for obvious reasons. But so a lot of people will just draw trolls like straight up light gray skin. Wow, my mouth right now. Light gray skin or dark gray skin or what have you. It's always like just a solid gray color for a lot of people, and there's nothing wrong with that because obviously that's how they're drawn in canon. So that is how I drew him in this illustration. But I drew that shortly before I got my husband into Homestuck, and he when we first started getting into it, would draw trolls with like their skin tinted to match their blood color. So like for Latula, because he really loved her, he would always draw her with like this slight like teal undertone, and I was like, that looks really good. I want to do that, so I decided I had the right colors to do that with Karkat. I had like a slightly pinkish, reddish, gray color, and I was like, that's perfect for his skin tone. I'm going to do that, and that is how I drew him every day forward. I didn't have that colors yet. A lot of what I did back then was digital, but once he sort of got me into doing that, I always sort of drew all the trolls with a slight tint. So I actually really liked the color choices a lot more. I felt like it was a little more interesting for me to look at. I felt like it brought some more color to the illustration rather than just like really monotone and then boom yellow, boom orange, boom red. So I really liked doing just like that little hint of color. I also tried to give his expression more detail. His expression in the original illustration isn't bad. Like, I can tell what emotion I was trying to illustrate, I guess you could say. I could tell I was trying to make him look a little bit frumpy grumpy because that's just how he is. That's how I wanted it to be, but it wasn't that. I didn't like how I drew his eyes. I didn't like how big they were. I didn't like how thin his eyebrows were. Like, this isn't 1990, Carcat. Like, can we get some brow gel up in there? You look like a mess. So I thickened his brows a little bit. I tried to move them around a little bit more so there was like a little bit more push of that expression, but it didn't. I was really having trouble with that. I think I might have gotten it there, but I could have used like just a little bit more exaggeration as far as his eyebrows goes. And I know I could have maybe messed with his mouth a little bit more. I kind of just made more teeth. I didn't really change it too much. But I did make it a little bit more proportional to his face, so that's good. I also made his teeth actually white and not colored in like the original illustration, so that is a little bit better, and overall I'm still happy with how his face turned out in general. Also, I didn't put a bullet point about this, but I was just thinking about it. His ears look really cute. I don't normally draw trolls with little triangle-y ears. I don't know why I did it that day when I was drawing it, but I think I'm going to start doing it again because it looks really cute. If I do draw more Homestuck fan art, I don't know if I will. Maybe. If I do, it's going to happen. And then this doesn't really have much to do with the actual illustration, but I mentioned in I think it was my Draw This Again video that I just did that I wanted to sort of improve on drawing hair with my Copic markers, and I think I have a little bit. I sort of just been cheating and making like a across the head highlight and then like blending it to sort of, or not blending, but feathering it to look more natural, I guess you could say, and it's looking pretty cool. I think it's still a little lazy, but I am gonna keep working with that technique, and hopefully I will end up with something that I'm happier with, but this is still a definite improvement to what I was doing before. So two more things that I wanted to address because this video is getting a little bit long. I wish his sweater was darker. I made the mistake of doing the Cancer symbol first, mostly because with Copics you have to work light to dark, and that means that I can't go over his shirt with a light color, and unfortunately that is a lighter color, which means I would have had to draw that first and then go around it with a dark color. And because I was so scared to mess up the symbol, I was a little bit of a scaredy cat and decided to only go one step up. The Cancer symbol is N2, and then I colored his shirt in with N4 because I'm a scaredy cat. So that is what I did, and I wish it was just a little bit darker, but it still looks relatively fine. And then my last bullet of disappointment, his body. It still needs a lot of work. I spent a couple minutes looking for a reference and I just couldn't find one because I get such like specific ideas in my head and I spend forever googling references and trying to find that one specific image, like yes, right here, that exact pose, this exact way, this exact angle, yes, this is it, and I can never find it. And unfortunately for me today, I did not have my husband here to pose and model for me, so I basically just looked at the original illustration and tried my best to work off of that and improve it in what way I could, but it's still kind of boxy, it's still kind of not necessarily proportional. His head is still kind of big, but not as big, so it's not that drastic of a difference. He doesn't look like a bobblehead. And overall, I think it's definitely an improvement, and I'm still kind of proud of the newer illustration. So that's, I guess, all you can ask for. There's some definite improvement there, and there will be more in the future, so there is that. But that is the decade challenge. I hope you guys enjoyed. I did do some additional tweaking to the illustration off camera, just in places where I felt like he needed more definition or where I didn't get enough shading So if you guys want to see the tweaked version, be sure to check it out on my Instagram. That will be up approximately 3 hours from now. If you guys didn't know, I post on Instagram every single day at 6 Central Time, or 6 p.m. Central Time, not a.m. Don't wake up that early. But I post every day at 6 p.m. Central Time, or as close to it as I most possibly can, every single day, so be sure to check out my Instagram. The link will be down in the description. And speaking of things that will be down in the description, so is the link to my Patreon. So I want to give a big shout out to my patron, Elise Thompson. Thank you so much for continuing to support me every single month. If you want to get your name at the end of these videos, as well as cool stuff like colored wallpapers, lined wallpapers, illustrated wallpapers, line art, free line art for you to color, it's very fun, commission discounts, all sorts of things like that, be sure to check me out on Patreon at patreon.com/SimonAESArts, and again, the link will be in the description. I love you guys so much, and I will see y'all next Sunday. Bye!